Okay, so if you're tracking the big shifts, especially, for things like the UPSC exams, there's something really significant out of Telangana we need to unpack today. We're diving into their formal implementation of subcategorization within scheduled castes, what people often call reservation within reservation.
Yeah, and what's really striking here is that Telangana is actually the first state to put this into practice. It's quite a landmark move.
It really is.
And it comes right after that that crucial Supreme Court judgment.
Yeah.
The one that basically upheld the legality of doing this kind of internal classification for SCs and STs.
Right, aiming for a more sort of targeted distribution of benefits.
Exactly. Better targeting.
So for everyone listening, and especially those of you prepping, our goal today is really to get a handle on this Telangana shift. We need to look at what does this subcategorization actually look like? Then what's the thinking behind it, the demands that led to it?
Yeah, the context.
And finally, the how. The political foundation that allowed Telangana to actually do this.
And we should mention our main source here is a detailed report from the Hindu. We're drawing heavily on their reporting for this deep dive.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's get into the specifics then. What exactly has Telangana done? How have they structured this internal division?
Right. So the first thing to get straight is the total reservation for SCs in Telangana, that 15%, that stays the same.
Okay, the overall cap isn't changing.
No. The change is within that 15%. It's how it's now allocated among the different subgroups. They've basically set up 3 distinct groups.
3 groups, okay.
Yeah, with different slices of that 15%.
Right, so let's break these down. What are the percentages for each group? And who's in them?
Okay, so Group I, they've been given 1% of the total SC reservation.
Just 1%?
Just 1%. And this group includes 15 specific subcastes. The government identified these as the most socioeconomically and educationally backward.
So the most disadvantaged within the SC category.
Precisely. And what's really interesting, their actual population share is apparently around 0.5% of the SC population.
Oh, wow.
But they got 1% reservation. So it's like a deliberate boost, right? A signal they want to significantly increase their representation.
Okay. That makes sense. A clear effort to uplift that specific segment. So what about the next one, Group 2?
Group 2 gets a much bigger slice, 9% reservation.
9%, okay.
Yeah, and this covers 18 different subcastes. The government's reasoning here is that these communities, well, they've only received marginal benefits so far from the old system.
Marginal benefits. So they were kind of missing out under the previous unified approach.
That seems to be the assessment, yes.
Yeah.
The idea is to channel more of the benefits towards these groups who haven't seen substantial gains.
Got it. And the last one, Group 3.
Group 3 gets the remaining 5%, and this includes 26 subcastes.
26.
Yep. And these are the groups that the assessment found have fared relatively better. They've managed to get more advantages under the existing reservation system compared to the others.
So just to recap then, a total 15% is still there, but now it's split. 1% for the most backward group, 9% for those with marginal benefits, and 5% for those who've done relatively better.
That's the structure.
And the clear aim is, well, more equitable access across all these different subgroups within the SCs.
Exactly. Equitable access to opportunities.
Which, really begs the question, what was driving this? What were the underlying reasons, the demands that led to this specific setup?
Well, according to the reporting in the Hindu, this wasn't something new. It's been a long-standing demand.
Ah, okay.
Particularly pushed by the Madiga community.
The Madigas.
Yeah. Their core argument for a long time has been that the benefits of the SC reservation were being, well, kind of monopolized.
Monopolized. By whom?
By more dominant SC subcastes. The Mallas are often mentioned in this context. The perception was that they were getting a disproportionate share.
I see. So a feeling of unequal distribution within the reserved category itself.
Precisely. That's the heart of the issue they raised. So this rejigging, while it aims for equity, it's also a fascinating look at how states try to handle these really complex identity politics,
Yeah, absolutely. And distributing limited resources within a group that's already historically disadvantaged. It's tricky.
Very tricky. It's moving beyond just inclusion to something more like differentiated inclusion, perhaps?
Differentiated inclusion, that's a good way to put it. So this push wasn't just some abstract idea. It came from specific groups feeling left out.
Absolutely. The Madigas primarily felt the old system wasn't addressing these internal disparities. They saw the Malas, maybe because they're a larger group or more organized, securing a bigger chunk of the reserved jobs and education seats,
Huh?
which naturally led to this feeling of being left behind and, well, a demand for a fair slice of the pie, essentially, a more proportionate distribution.
And the Telangana government's stated objective, it seems to line up perfectly with that. They say they want to ensure equitable access to education and employment for all these subgroups.
Right. Directly tackling that perceived imbalance.
Okay, so we've got the what, the three-tier structure, and the why,
Yeah.
this long-standing demand for equity, particularly from the Madiga community. Now let's shift to the how. For folks studying this, the legal and political side is crucial. What actually allowed Telangana to do this?
Okay, the absolute linchpin here was that Supreme Court judgment, the one from August 2024.
The seven-judge bench one.
That's the one, a 7-judge constitution bench. It was fundamental. It really paved the way. The biggest takeaway. The court stated, quite unequivocally, that states do have the power to subclassify SCs and STs for reservation purposes.
So they explicitly gave states the green light.
Yes, a clear validation of this whole reservation within reservation principle. That was critical.
And the court didn't just grant the power, did it? It also acknowledged the problem, the uneven distribution.
Exactly. That's a key point. The judgment specifically recognized that reservation benefits weren't being spread evenly across all the subcastes within SCs and STs.
So it acknowledged the very issue that groups like the Madigas had been highlighting for years, that some were benefiting much more than others.
Right. So the ruling wasn't just theoretical. It was grounded in the reality of unequal outcomes. It basically okayed this subclassification as a tool for the most marginalized within the marginalized.
Precisely. And very importantly for the legal eagles listening, the Supreme Court made it clear that this kind of subcategorization doesn't violate Article 14, the right to equality,
Okay.
or Article 341, which deals with specifying who the scheduled castes are.
Ah, those are potential hurdles, weren't they? Whether it broke equality principles or messed with the constitutional definition.
They were. The concern was exactly that. Does dividing the list internally violate Article 14? Does it tamper with the president's power under Article 341? The court said no.
How did they reason that?
They essentially argued that treating unequals unequally within a larger disadvantaged group in order to achieve greater substantive equality is permissible. It doesn't fundamentally change the overall SC category defined under 341.
Okay, so differentiated treatment for greater overall equality.
Exactly. And this was huge because previous court views had been a bit conflicting on this. This 2024 judgment really cleared up the ambiguity. It provided that clear legal pathway.
Got it. So the Supreme Court provided the foundation. How did Telangana then, actually build the policy on top of that? What was the mechanism?
They enacted a specific law. It's called the Telangana Scheduled Castes Rationalization of Reservations Act 2025.
The Rationalization Act 2025.
Yes, that's the legislation that brings this whole subcategorization structure into force. And quite significantly, it was officially notified, put in the State Gazette on April 14th, 2025.
April 14th, that's Dr. Ambedkar's birth anniversary.
Exactly. The timing is hardly accidental, you'd imagine. It really underlines the social justice angle, the symbolic weight of the move.
Definitely sends a message. And was this just based on sort of political demands, or was there data behind the actual grouping?
Oh, there was data. The government stated the categorization was based on extensive data.
Extensive data. Like what?
Well, they apparently looked at a whole range of indicators, social, economic, political, educational, for all the different SC subcastes. The idea was to get a proper measure of their relative backwardness and how much they'd actually benefited from reservations up to that point.
So a data-driven attempt to map out the internal inequalities.
That's the claim, yes. A comprehensive assessment.
And for people listening, maybe wondering about the immediate impact, does this new system kick in right away, say, for government jobs?
Yes. The Hindu report confirms that. New government job recruitments in Telangana will follow this new classified system immediately.
Wow. So it's already being applied.
It is. We're seeing the practical application right now in public sector employment access.
Okay. So looking ahead then, what are the potential ripples from this, future considerations? What does this mean more broadly, maybe even nationally?
Well, one thing the Telangana government itself flagged is that they plan to revisit these quotas.
Oh, really?
After the 2026 census, they've indicated they might revise things depending on what the new demographic data shows about the populations and socioeconomic status of these groups.
So it's not set in stone forever. There's an inbuilt review mechanism based on future data.
Seems so, which suggests an understanding that these things aren't static. Beyond that, well, you can bet other states are watching Telangana very closely.
They think others might follow suit?
It's possible.
Yeah.
Or we might see further legal challenges, perhaps testing the specifics of how Telangana did it, maybe even similar moves for other backward classes or within STs. It opens up a whole discussion.
Yeah, it definitely sets a precedent, doesn't it? And just to get a sense of the scale of this reshuffle within Telangana's SC list, how many subcastes actually moved groups?
Right, the report mentioned that. Out of the 59 SC subcastes listed in Telangana, about 33 are staying put in their sort of previous broad grouping.
Okay, so a majority didn't change category dramatically.
Right, it was the other 26 subcastes that were reclassified into these new group by and 3 categories based on that government assessment.
So it highlights it's a significant restructuring, but maybe not a complete overhaul for everyone on the list.
Yeah.
Focused on specific realignments for equity.
That seems to be the picture, yes. Greater internal equity was the target.
Okay, so for you, the listener, particularly if you're prepping for the UPSC exams, this is really, really critical stuff. It touches on social justice, key constitutional provisions like Articles 14 and 341, and the nuts and bolts of state government policy.
Absolutely.
We've seen Telangana basically become a pioneer here, implementing this SC Sub-Categorisation. It's driven by that search for fairer distribution of reservation benefits. And crucially, it's backed by that big Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah, and if we zoom out for a second, this whole thing in Telangana, it pushes us to ask a bigger question, doesn't it? Especially if you're interested in policy or social justice.
What's that?
Well, what does this tell us about how affirmative action is evolving in India? It forces us to think harder about, how do we make sure these benefits really reach the most needy within already marginalized groups?
Right. And how states navigate these incredibly sensitive issues within the Constitution.
Exactly. It's about the complexities of achieving genuine equity on the ground.
Absolutely. And for those of you prepping, seriously, this is prime material. Worth digging deeper into the Supreme Court judgment specifics, the Telangana Act itself, maybe related articles. Think about those constitutional angles, 14, 341. Think about the equity versus equality debate. And yeah, the potential for this model to spread or be challenged elsewhere.
Definitely key areas to cover.
So what are your thoughts on this? It's a pretty significant development. Share your perspectives, any further questions you might have down in the comments. We always want to explore these topics based on what you find important.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
And just to reiterate, this deep dive was based on that detailed reporting from The Hindu. Do check out their coverage if you want even more detail and nuance.
It's worth reading their full report.
Definitely. And finally, if you found this analysis insightful, if it helped clarify things for you, please do give us a like and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of these kinds of crucial topics.